We are told Moshe Rabbeinu was Anav Mikol Adam. He was the most humblest in spirit of all that were on the face of the world. What is an Anav? In English, translated humble, humility. What does it mean? Rashi comments 2 words. Shafel v'savlan. A person that doesn't lowers himself, doesn't hold himself in esteem in the eyes of others. He appreciates his abilities, he appreciates his talents, but he doesn't go along and think that they're due to him. He appreciates they're God-given, and hence he lowers himself. The other point is savlan. He has patience. He can be tolerant. Savlan, also the word for sabal, a person that carries boxes, something on his shoulder is called a sabal. In other words, that's a person it's the same root as patience. In other words, he can tolerate the yoke on his back. He's a person that's sovel, a person that's suffering is also, he's carrying a weight, he's taking on another burden on his back. Savlanut, patience, which is the ability of a person to be able to contain others, understand others, be with others, not necessarily to impose his own opinion, but to understand other people's views, to understand, that is patience, that's savlanut, the ability for a person to contain all around him, all society. And of the most necessary qualities of a leader is savlanut, patience. It's the ability for a person to understand, read the map, understand what the other person wants, where he's coming from, what his approach is. And a leader that doesn't have this level of patience and just wants to impose himself on others will not get very far. When Moshe Rabbeinu was looking for a leader to take his position over, he was looking for somebody asher sovel kol ruach v'ruach, was able to take on the yoke, the burden of every person. Every person has their ideas, their mindsets, their approach. And a leader has to be able to work out that person's approach, ideas, and with his wantings, approach, ideas, has to go with that. Moshe Rabbeinu took Yehoshua as the leader because he had this quality as well. He'd probably seen it by his mentor, Moshe Rabbeinu, and he was the one that had the level of, we'll call it humility, patience, to be able to take on every person's differences, every person's approach, every person's mindset, every person's desires and wants and understandings, and work accordingly. Interestingly enough, in next week's parasha, we find that Moshe Rabbeinu was sending the spies. 2 of the spies, Yehoshua and Caleb, great people who did not come back with a negative report like the others. Yehoshua at first was called Hoshea. Moshe Rabbeinu was worried for him and prayed for him, and he added on a letter Yud to his name. Now, instead of being Hoshea, it became Yehoshua. This Yud added on to the Hey made his name into Ka Yoshiacha. Ka as in the name of Hashem. Ka Yoshiacha Matzat Meraglim. Hashem should save you from the wrong advice, the evil advice of the spies. Moshe Rabbeinu felt the necessity to pray for Yehoshua, even more than Kalev. He felt the necessity to add on the Yud, the name of Hashem, to Yeshua's name, to give him that extra divine assistance, that extra help that he may need to be able to stand up to the trial. Yeshua, the greatest, deserved this blessing. However, let's understand, Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader, as explained, the person that can tolerate everybody, that can contain everybody, would he not want to pray for all the spies? Why specifically Yeshua? Kalev also, a great man. Would he not want to pray for Kalev? Furthermore, what did he pray? He added on the letter Yud, and now Hoshea was turned to Yehoshua. Yehoshua now is made up of Yud and the Hey, which is Hashem's name, Ka, Hoshea, Hashem should save you. Now we know the name Ka, Yud K, is the name of Hashem of Midat Hadin, the name that denotes strict din, judgment, the judgment attribute. Surely, when praying for a person, for Hashem to have mercy, wouldn't we prefer to use the name Yud K Vav K, which is the name of Hashem of Chesed, of Rachamim? Why did Moshe choose the name of Yud and a Hey, which is the name of Hashem of Din? The Targum, Yonatan ben Uziel, explains, why was it Moshe Rabbeinu prayed for Yeshua? Yeshua had the tremendous attribute, the tremendous trait of humility, patience. However, there is a downside to patience. A person may be too tolerant. The trait of tolerance is a tremendous trait. However, you've got to know when to use it. Moshe Rabbeinu knew that due to his greatness of tolerance, maybe Yeshua would come along, the spies would come along and tell him, you know, really this should be said, look how difficult it's going to become, it's going to be to conquer the land, maybe we shouldn't, how should we do it? He may be influenced, he may be too tolerant for the wrong opinions. Moshe Rabbeinu was worried that his ma'alah, his greatness, may pull him down. Hence, he wanted to contain his tolerance, and contained is used with the name of Hashem of Ka, which is Midat Hadin. It's a name of Hashem of Din to contain and ensure that his tolerance will not be put in the wrong place. Tolerance is it's the trait of a leader, the ability to understand everybody. However, you have to know where to draw the line and when to use it. A person can only tolerate somebody else if it's not on the expense of tolerating first what Hashem wants from us. We first have to be able to tolerate Hashem's word, accept Hashem's word, know what we're doing, and then we can look to help and tolerate and be there for everybody else. We find a very similar example of this in the time of the Churban of the Bet HaMikdash. We find that famous story of Bar Kamsa that came to slander to the authorities that the Jews are rebelling. And he told the Roman general to send an offering, and on the way there he put a blemish in the eye, and he told the Roman, you'll see if they offer it up or not. He came there, the Bet Din, the Sanhedrin, they didn't know what to do. To offer it up is incorrect, it's got a blemish. Not to offer it up, then it may be jeopardizing the whole safety of the nation. They didn't know what to do, and in essence, they should have killed Bar Kamsa, and that way ridded of the threat. At the time, Zechariah ben Avkulus was debating to offer it up, to not offer it up, and that tolerance Says the Gemara, because of the humility of Zachariah ben Akulus, the Beit HaMikdash ultimately became destroyed. That humility, says Rashi, the savlanut, the patience, the tolerance of what he had, was not in place. It caused the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. We first must be tolerant to what Hashem wants from us. Let's see what the Shulchan Aruch wants from us. Let's see what Hashem is asking for us and telling us what to do. And then we can apply the tolerance that we're meant to have for everybody else according to what the tolerance, the guidelines of the Torah is. Anav, tolerance, is of the greatest midah. We need to work a very, very lot at it. It's the trait of a leader, the ability to contain, to be there for everybody, to understand others, to be tolerant to others. But let's ensure that it's also guided by the guidelines of the Torah. Shabbat Shalom.